With its latest survey on how small business owners are feeling about the state of the economy, our senior economics reporter Steve Leisman is here along with a special guest. Hey, Steve.
Becky, thanks very much. The NFIB Small Business Optimism Index actually ticking up, gaining 1.5 points in January, rising to 94.1. What's important about that is it's the highest level since before the recession began, December 07. It's been a while since we've had that. There's the chart right there. You can see we're finally taking out before the recession, the December 07 high, which was 94.6.
It's joining us way off of the highs, though.
It's still well off of the highs. It would not be an NFIB survey. It didn't have a butt to it. Every time, there's always some asterisk with it. And now the king of the asterisk himself, Bill Dunkelberg, chief economist with the NFIB. Bill, I was just remarking that I think we've had this on, and you've been on here for about 2 years now. We have never known this to be an optimistic survey, Bill.
Yeah, certainly for the last 2 years, it has not shown a lot of optimism. That's unfortunate. Then the economy hasn't shown a lot of energy either, so that's the difficulty. So it's nice to know we surpassed the 2007 December reading or the November reading. But that's not saying much. We're still way off the average, which would be around 100. So we got a long way to go, and that's the problem. You know, we saw the GDP numbers in the fourth quarter exceeded, so we just produced more than we did in fourth quarter 07. The interesting thing is, though, employment is 7 million people lower than it was then. So we're making the same amount of stuff now, but we're using 7 million fewer people to do it. Shows up in the productivity numbers. Very weird situation.
Bill, I can tell you we have a commitment here at CNBC to keep you around until we get one unadulterated good report. Let's go through. There are a couple positives in here. Let's talk about those for a moment. Earnings trends and the expectations for sales are both positive.
Yeah, those both turned in a big improvement. We got a 6-point gain in the earnings trends, and they're still negative, but less negative. So that's the but it is improving, and that's good. And of course, expectations for real sales did improve nicely, and that's important. If you think sales are going to go up, then you'll have to get some more inventory, and you'll have to hire some workers to take care of the customers, and that's good.
Now, you make a remark in your press release here that, fortunately, we have Congressman Ryan here. It says here. It is belied by the actions. While recent political rhetoric favors small business, it is belied by the actions of policymakers whose new policies and activities almost exclusively support big business. So, Bill, what do you want? And then Congressman Ryan's got a pen in his hand, or will, and we'll write it down just while you're talking here, Bill.
Well, the regulations, of course, that was nice that we heard that we were going to have a regulatory review. Unreasonable red tape and regulations are one of the very top concerns of small businesses. Waste a lot of their time, and the entrepreneur's time is the most valuable asset the company has, and also waste resources. So if that happens, that'll be good, but we've been talking about it for a long time. We'll see if we go there. And the other thing was, the proximate cause of the recession back in 2008 was the big increase in the savings rate, decline in consumer spending, and really that hasn't been addressed until this year finally, when we had at least a 2-point reduction in the payroll tax. That'll add some money to payrolls every month, every week, and that'll show up in more spending, and that will help.
Congressman Ryan?
Well, on the regular reform, if you look at the president's executive order, he exempts all independent agencies. So, number one, that could go a lot farther. Number two, they apply some sort of subjective rule to it, which basically says if we choose to get rid of this regulation or not, it's up to us. So there's really no objective measurement or metric on cost benefit and applying to government-wide. The thing we think we can add as a new Republican Congress is real reg reform and through the use of oversight. We want to use our oversight tools in Congress to do a lot of oversight hearing, not to play gotcha, but to try and uncover burdensome regulations that are stopping and stifling business creation. The other thing that I think you mentioned was really important. We got to go after crony capitalism. This notion of having sort of big government and big business joining in a common cause where we stack and rig the deck, where the government is sort of picking winners and losers, whether it's through financial regulatory reform or our housing policy or our tax and all of our different policies. That's something we want to highlight on this year because we want to get back to the fundamentals.
Of letting business run ramshot over consumers.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Okay. That was wonderful.
I'm kidding.
No, of having transparent regulations that are actually predictable and fair, that apply the rules equal to everybody. that do not reward, the current incumbents of big business, give the kings the keys and let them pull the drawbridge up behind them. We don't want to go down that path, and that is why when you try and invest so much in big government, architectural regulatory designs, which I would argue FinReg is one of those things, you're going to get more bigness, less smallness. So we want to focus on the entrepreneurship fundamentals. Sound regulations, sound money, low tax rates, spending cuts and spending controls, the foundations for economic growth. And reg reform is something we really think through oversight we can lend help to this in this. Right? Yeah, all of us are going to be doing reg reform.
Congressman, there's also something in this report that you were talking about earlier, which is some data about inflation, and I want to ask Bill Dunkelberg about that. Bill, what's happening with plans of small businesses to raise prices, and what's happening with their input costs?
Well, we're looking at, on the input cost side, not too many complaints yet, although we have now seen a fairly smart increase in the number of firms telling us they're raising worker comp. So worker compensation is now starting to pick up, and that'll happen as the labor markets tighten up a little bit. On the price side, we still have a few more firms reporting that they're cutting their selling prices than raising them, but we're about at the zero line. So that's over. We're going to be back into an environment where average prices are rising. That's no surprise. I mean, the big price cutting over the last 2 years was to get rid of all that inventory that we accumulated through 07 for a zero savings rate consumer. And of course, we got stuck with a lot when consumers decided to stop spending.
Bill,
we had to cut prices to get rid of it, and that's done now, I think.
Bill, would you say that there's any whiff of inflation in this report this morning?
Well, I would say in the trend, definitely yes. We're headed back to a more normal situation where you're going to see the headline CPI going up, not just because of oil and food, but because the basic prices of all the stuff that the small businesses provide is going up.
Bill, thanks very much, and you have several more appearances.
I think Paul had one more question.
Bill, I just had a quick question about certainty. I mean, when I talk to small businesses in Wisconsin, it's the uncertainty issue always comes up. How much do you think certainty has been addressed? I mean, do small businesses think in the short and medium term for the next couple of years we sort of address the certainty issue, especially with respect to taxes and issues like that?
Well, only somewhat. We were glad to see that the tax rates got fixed, at least for 2 years. But now you still have, and no disrespect meant, but Congress likes to pass things and to move on to new things without watching what's going on. So we're still really afraid of the health care bill. We don't even know if we're going to have one now. We like the idea, or most of us do, that you might get rid of it. But in the meantime, regs are being written, and somebody needs to watch this, because that's going to really change the cost of labor for us.
Tremendous.
We get the EPA regs, et cetera. So we appreciate your good efforts on behalf of small business to take a look at what's going on the regulatory side, not just passing these wonderful bills.
How about getting rid of that 1099 thing, though? That was
isn't bipartisanship wonder that's going to happen, though, right?
There's no question about that. That's going to happen.
I think that is going to happen. Yes, I do.
I used to go to baseball games, and all the guys I knew would come up to me and complain to me about the 1099. It was the number one thing that was out there.
At baseball games?
When I was coaching Little League, and the guys would come up to me from my town and said, Steve, you got to get rid of that 1099 thing, as if I had the actual power to do it. And I said, I'd talk to my congressman.
All right.
Exactly.
Who's your congressman?
Actually, I don't. Rita Lowry.
Nita Lowry. Nice, delightful person.
Rita Lowry, yes.
Steve, thank you. And by the way, when you come back...
Ask me about GDP, Congressman. Don't ask me names.
I didn't mean to stump you.
Steve, when you come back, we're going to talk more, because we were talking with Congressman Ryan before, and as the chairman of the Budget Committee, he's got Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke coming before him yesterday.
Yes.
So when
and
you come back at 8:30...
comment that fiscal policy is on a collision course with monetary policy in the 7 o'clock hour. Very interesting comment.
Okay. We'll hear more. Steve, thank you very much.
And when we come back this morning, Boba Fett, watch out.